Okay. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name's Nancy. I am in the New Orleans area, and I am the facilitator today for Erace. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person to person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. Erace is an organization that does not espouse any political party, and we have no religious affiliation. We believe in acceptance of all people, and no personal attacks of any kind will be tolerated. We come with an intention to listen, learn, and not to argue. Okay, next I'll read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of indigenous peoples and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named. Members of our group today are on the lands of the Takawa, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha and Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc people in Boston, and the Kahua and Mojave in Riverside, California. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands and through the generations and today. Okay, well, everybody has been here before. Here comes Louise. Great. Um, you know, you raise one finger to get on the list. We speak in order of the list. We try to keep our comments to 2 minutes. We are respectful. We don't interrupt the speaker. We have no side comments, no personal attacks, no name calling. The point of the discussion is to listen, learn, and not to argue. We do have clarifying questions where you raise 2 fingers. And the point of the clarifying question is to ask, I did not understand what you meant, or could you further clarify what you meant by? Okay. Um, da, 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 da. At the end of the discussion, about 15 minutes before, we will have a wrap up where you give your final thoughts. If you haven't spoken at all during the meeting, you can take your full 2 minutes, but at the end, we'd like you to keep your final thoughts to a minute. Okay. And also, it is okay to pass. All right. And miss anything? I may have. Seems like I had something on my mind and it's gone already. All right. So anyway, it's why I brought the article. If you notice, the article said, um, as birthright citizenship issue goes to the Supreme Court. Well, obviously, this article was a couple of weeks ago because it's already gone to the Supreme Court and it's up for review. But I thought that it would be interesting to talk about and how it relates to Erace is that it seems that the issue of birthright citizenship seems to be focused mainly on persons of color coming from the southern border or from Africa or Asia or anywhere where there are people of color. And the focus is not so much primarily on people coming from coming from Europe or either through our northern border. It doesn't seem to focus on that. I'm sure there are people here who overstayed their visas from European countries and they have babies here, which are uh, considered citizens, but that doesn't seem to bother anyone. So, anyway, that's why I brought the article. Okay, I thought it would be good for discussion. It's a current issue. Well, it's been an issue for quite some time. The entire immigration process in this country, and it seems to me as though as long as the majority of people were coming from Europe, immigration was not a problem. And you came to Ellis Island, and as long as you were did not have any type of infectious disease, you were allowed into the country. Okay, now it's a big deal. Yeah. So anyway, the list is open.
Can we
Marion.
introduce ourselves?
Oh,
Oh,
that's right.
Oh,
I
yeah, that's
told
right.
you. I said there's something I'm forgetting. Didn't I say that? I said I knew. So something don't feel
I
right.
don't
I keep
know, but
forgetting. No, thank you for reminding me because I was thinking, I said, there's something I'm forgetting here, and I don't, could not for the life of me
I was
remember what it was.
I
And
just
it
got
should
back
be
home
on
and I
this
was like,
paper.
well, I'm gonna wait
I don't know
until
where that
I
is.
can introduce myself to get busy and mute and whatnot
Okay.
because I know just as sure as the world you'll call on me when I got my hands doing
Full of
something. I
something.
can't run
Okay.
to
And
the
that's
phone.
another thing.
Yeah.
Please keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking. And we will start in the order that I see you on the screen, and that is with Phyllis.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Phyllis. I'm in New Orleans, and I've been coming to Erace since the summer of 2008.
Marion,
Okay, did I unmute?
you're unmuted.
Okay, all right. Hi, everybody again. I'm Marion. I'm right here in New Orleans in the Gentilly area. Been coming to the discussion since June of 1993.
Thank you. Leonetta,
Good morning, everybody. I have been a member of Erase since I did my intern in undergrad.
thank you. Louise,
Hi, I'm Louise. Been coming for over 2 decades. First in New Orleans, now in Austin, Texas.
all right, thank you. And last but not least, Teresa.
All right. I am Teresa Roberson. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, land of the Lumbee Indians. And I've been coming since August 2022.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Now we can move forward. Okay. Mary.
Okay, oh, there was a big blob right there. Okay, what was I going to say? Oh, yes, I thought this was so interesting. How someone is trying to modify the rules so that people of color won't have it so easy. If a child is of color is born in this country, I think it's just whose parents were not born in the country. Now, some folks want to say that it's conditional. Uh, I was off the grid a while. I have read the Constitution, but the certain person that I'm talking about, you all know who that person is, wants to rewrite the Constitution or abolish it altogether to make sure that not too many people of color or people of color period don't get their foot in the door. And it's outrageous. If you're born in this country, it's my understanding you're a citizen. So to think that this person could voice this sentiment and try to stir the pot of controversy so that it will be some difficulty is just outrageous. And I hope the people that have a backbone in Congress stand up to this and not let this person try to rewrite the Constitution so that there will be difficulty for certain persons, and that those certain persons, being persons of color, have difficulty becoming citizens of this country. And I had a crazy thought last week. I said, and I voiced it to some family members and friends. If this person wouldn't try to change things right now, he's making it difficult for people to vote, but try to really rewrite what's in the Constitution and make it more difficult for people that were actually born here, like myself. I don't know if there's anybody else in the group who was not born in the United States who's a person of color, but I know I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, at Flint Goodrich Hospital. So I'm 100% citizen, but we really are going to have to watch this. Stand up, let our voices be heard, and definitely go to the polls and vote.
All right. Thank you, Mariam. Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, I'd like to get on.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. And Marion, to your point, my father was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. So I was born outside the States, but automatically a citizen because any American citizen born to military are automatic. But it's interesting that my passport says Japan. Um, when I read this article, I thought, well, I sped read it and I thought, oh yeah, when the immigration rules doesn't favor whatever white supremacists are trying to do, that's when there's a real problem. I remember when I taught in Egypt and when the head of school was recruiting teachers, they were talking about the diversity of the student body. And he based it on the passports. Well, these rich Egyptian women, and this is a thing, I think they call it birth tourism. I don't know, but I kind of feel like Phyllis is looking it up for me. Hint, hint. But whatever it's called, rich women will, in their third trimester, I guess, go to certain countries. United States is one of them, but not the only one, and have their children, and their children are automatically citizens of that country. And that's what it was. Our school was not as diverse as one would think on paper because they were all Egyptian, well, for the most part, but they had dual citizenship because of their passports. Now, I was 30, I think, when I got my job there, and I had never even heard of this until then. And one of the teachers who was hired the same year I was, she and her husband specifically chose that school because they really liked the diversity of the international student body. To come and find out, no, these kids weren't English and Irish and American and this, that, and the other. They were Egyptians whose family could afford, I think they call it a birth vacation or something, whatever it is. It was very strategic because when they then go to school, they're not paying
All right,
so
Teresa,
much
your
to be
2 minutes is
citizens.
up, but there is nobody on the list.
I figured you'd stop me when my 2 minutes were
Your
up.
two
But
minutes is up, but I
okay,
mean,
if there's if
all
anybody else
right.
wants to go, y'all can go. But I did find it interesting that that was how I found out about it, and
Phyllis.
most certainly, okay, the Orange Menace wasn't in office in 2001, but nobody was thinking about stopping these rich women from doing that, and so the article doesn't even address that. What if it's and I don't even know what passports my students' parents had, but maybe they also had American passports because maybe their mother did it, when they were out. Who
Could
knows? I have
be.
no idea. But it's interesting. It's like, oh, are you, and how does that fall when
Okay,
rich people do
Teresa,
it?
would you like to get back on the list? Because Phyllis is waiting.
Okay, that was my last point. What if it's
Okay.
brown people but who are rich? Are we going to stop them too?
Yes, I would think so.
Okay.
Because it's about the browning of America.
Mhm.
All right, Phyllis.
Okay, well, I followed Teresa's instructions. I Googled citizenship shopping and I found citizenship by investment, which allows individuals to legally acquire a second nationality and passport by making a significant financial contribution often starting around $100,000, but could be as much as $1 million to a country's economy. And there are European countries, a lot in the Caribbean and others, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Vanuatu, and Nauru offer programs with varying requirements. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, she'll have to ask me
Yes.
because there's no practice for it.
Okay, there you go. That's all I got for now.
That was it.
I'll get back on the list later.
Okay, well then the list is open.
I'll get on.
All right, thank you, Amal.
You're welcome. Yeah, this if you I don't know if anybody watched it, but there was a video that accompanied this article. And if you pay attention to the video, then what Teresa's talking about as it relates to bird tourism is they talk about that in the video, and if that's an option as it relates to becoming a citizen in the United States. And they never mention money or being rich. It's just bird tourism. Like if you're on vacation, literally, and you have a child in that country, then would that child be considered a citizen? What's interesting about the article, a lot of people might not know this, but a very, very famous person around the world who's an American, who is an American that a lot of people might not know based off of the definition in terms of just being born here. And that man name, his nickname is the Little Dragon, also known as Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco. And the reason he was born in San Francisco is his parents were stage actors, and they were part of this Chinese opera, I guess, play, if you will. And a play was in San Francisco at the time when his mother was pregnant and gave birth to him. And he was given birth to in San Francisco, in Chinatown, and he was born here. And so Bruce Lee is an American based off of what was the definition that wasn't up for debate at that time. Now, because the United States is getting a little browner, now there's this debate as to who's an American and who's not. When the Irish came in, it was no debate. When the Italians came in, and then all of those European countries who were coming into the United States at the latter part of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, this wasn't up for debate as to what is and who's not and who qualify and who don't qualify. These things wasn't debatable at that time. But now that they're coming from Mexico and different parts of Central America, now there's this huge debate as to who
Amal,
is and
you
who's
have
not.
reached your 2-minute limit, but there's nobody else on the
No, go ahead.
list.
I just wanted to make that point that show how hypocritical, rather.
Oh,
I'd like to
absolutely.
get on.
The debate
Thank you,
is
Teresa.
the debate is when it comes to people who are non-European.
Yes. Teresa, absolutely. That was my whole
Yeah,
point.
and I want to thank Amal's comments because when the Italians first came in, they were not under the umbrella of whiteness. I know you know this, Amal. As a matter of fact, they're the kind of, I want to say, famous group that came in, wasn't considered white, eventually got under the umbrella, and some would like to disingenuously say, well, see, if you work hard and you da 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 da, and I'm just like, you do realize that it's based on skin tone, not just the fact that you worked hard, because there's a lot of hard working, very, very dark skinned immigrants who are never going to be under the umbrella of whiteness because they do not pass the skin tone test. But I'm glad you did, Amal, bring up Italians, because when they first came in, they were not welcome. They were not considered white. They were treated very, very poorly, perhaps not as poorly as their more melanated immigrant counterparts, but they famously got under the umbrella of whiteness. And then some, again, will disingenuously say because it was their hard work. And it's like, nah, there's a lot of hardworking, very melanated skinned people, and they're not going to pass the skin test. So that's all I wanted to comment. But so it really does matter if you can pass the test. Because even what are they called? The Proud Boys. They say if you can look the part and you have that Proud Boy culture, doesn't really matter that your last name is Fuentes. Doesn't really matter that you whatever. But I do note that Nick Fuentes is lighter skinned. I wonder, if he looked darker like one of my nephews, if he could still be, or I don't even keep up with the Proud Boys, but I'm just saying, this is like, oh, they're letting a Latino. Oh no, he's under the umbrella. He's not grandfathered in, but they wanted to put him under that umbrella and then say, well, it doesn't matter that, but he surely isn't darker skinned.
Thank you,
So
Teresa.
you're welcome.
Okay. But actually, the list is open. And I also wanted to add in, Marion, with the Italians and Jewish people, they were able to change their name and blend in because their name also would make them stand out when they first immigrated. So if they were able to change their name, they would be able to effectively pass. Okay, thank you. Marion is next. Unmute, Marion. There you go. No, unmute. You have to unmute.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
If we can rattle our memory cages a little bit, we had a discussion a while back about some very tragic, unpleasant incidents here in the city of New Orleans directed toward Italian people of Italian descent. Uh, they were lynched, uh, murdered, just like Black people. That's a most unpleasant historical fact that some people in our city and state don't want to discuss. Um, I remember in the neighborhood where I grew up as a little girl, we had an Italian grocery store on the corner of Katie's. Well, some people this is Spanish, so someone would say Cadiz and Willow Street. And I went there all the time at my mother's request to get staples. And it was the neighborhood was of course predominantly Black. We were called Negroes then, or colored people. Because I remember the young man who was the son of the owner of the grocery calling me a little colored girl. I was about 9 or 10 years old. I didn't get upset about it because I wasn't that aware that we were living in those times. But they lynched people here in the city of New Orleans who were of Italian descent. It was a very horrible time. That concludes my remarks for this time. I just wanted to bring that up, that those Italians were not that accepted as some people might think.
Okay, thank you, Marion. Okay, the list is open. Okay. Phyllis.
I put my finger up just as you put your head down. Well, a little off topic, but not really. I'm reading a book right now called The Lilac People. And it is about transgender people in Nazi Germany. And there are so many overlaps to our current situation in this country that it almost makes me physically ill as I'm reading it. And it's even hard to explain. It focuses on one particular trans man. Of course, they had different kind of language then, but I'm going to use our language. And his significant other and a friend of theirs. And it also brings in like the other people who were oppressed by the Nazis, like the Romas, known as the Gypsies at the time, and Jewish people, of course, and anybody seen as not Aryan enough. And it's just almost like the current administration is following the Nazi playbook to turn people against each other, to make people not trust each other. And the sexual violence that is used against everyone. I just recommend the book, The Lilac People. It's eye-opening. It's a part of like Nazi history you don't really get taught in even high school, not much at college when I was in college. Yeah, can't recommend it highly enough.
Thank you. Okay, the list is open.
Oh, can I say one more thing then?
Sure.
So yeah, recently Caitlyn Jenner was interviewed lamenting that her passport has been changed to no longer have an F but an M again. And I am so annoyed with her. It's very much in line with MAGA world to only care about things when they affect you. Like all the other things affecting trans people shouldn't ever speak up about that. But the fact that it's affecting her passport, it's going to make travel harder for her. She's lamenting that, and she says she still loves Trump. So, gross.
Okay. The list is open.
Steve, Phil. Oh, can I go?
Yes, sure.
Sorry. Phyllis, you just said something controversial because I've always had, and I've been going back and forth too, because I think, it doesn't matter the demographic of person. You can find assholes in every demographic, people that you don't like. And you've just named one that I find problematic when it seems like Caitlyn Jenner is down for the cause, just like you say, very personal. And I just, the way I view Caitlyn Jenner is that she lived at this point most of her life as a man and had all that white man privilege. And then when she transitioned, thought that all of that was going to carry. I mean, a habit is a habit. When you're used to being treated and respected in a certain way, you just think, well, I'm going to always be treated that way. It's always going to, but circumstances change. So that's really one of my main problems with Caitlyn Jenner and the whole thing about, oh, yes, I support Trump and I do this and I do that. And it's like, you want all the benefits of who you were before. But then you're not, I mean, I hadn't heard about her passport gender changing or whatever. And I just think this person is at a certain point when you have enough money, it's like, why are you bothering to, you're not dying in the street. You're not, you did a lot in your life and whatever. So she is really, really problematic because I always see her in the lens of you really lived a very privileged life and you still expect that. So I'm done with that one. Or I'm done talking, I should say.
Okay, thank you. All right, the list is open.
Yeah, I'll say something
Okay.
as it relates to the topic. You know, one of the interesting things that I think a lot of people are not considering, because when you read the article, you see how different demographics and different generations feel about birthright citizenship. There's one part of the article where it talks about, when you talk to the first generation of a particular group, they'll be for it. By the time you get to the third generation of that same family, and the opinions about birthright citizenship changes. And one of the things that I noticed, and this wasn't a problem when I was in high school. This became a situation later on after I had graduated, and they don't teach civics in school anymore. So a lot of people don't understand how the country is ran in terms of Constitution, Bill of Rights, so on and so forth. Because it was in civics that I first learned this, that what it is to be an American. All you have to do is be born here. It had nothing to do with where your parents came from. That was the first time that I learned this in civics. And when you don't teach a subject like that in school anymore, even the article admit, depending on how you ask the question to people, will dictate how they answer. Because a lot of people are just oblivious to what it means and what it takes to be an American. All you have to do is be born here. It has nothing to do with where your parents are from. It doesn't have nothing to do with how your parents got here. Because as you know, if you live in Florida, if you're Cuban, all you have to do is land on the soil. And they will let you in. Now, if you're Haitian, now we have to have another conversation. But if you're Cuban, all you have to do is just make it here. Just make it to the United States and you'll be all right. And as you all know, Florida is only 90 miles off of not there's a 90-mile difference between Cuba and Florida. Now that's a 90-mile ocean trek that you'll have to take, but nevertheless, it's only 90 miles. And so
From here to Baton Rouge.
Say it again.
I said from here to Baton Rouge.
Practically. Practically. So that's the journey. But once again, this conversation is not a conversation if you're talking about Cubans. All you got to do is make it. So why doesn't that same rule apply for everybody? If you just made it here, you'll be okay. And we won't have this conversation about who is and who's not in America. If you want to come and you can make it, they don't put Cubans through this naturalization process that everybody else has to go through. Once you get here, you'll be all right. Now, don't get me wrong. You have to get the proper paperwork. I don't misunderstand it, but they're not gonna ship you back. That won't be the conversation. And we know that because we seen that with what's the little boy name was? He probably a grown man by now. Elian Gonzalez. Remember Elian Gonzalez? A lot of people don't remember Elian Gonzalez. We used to have a lot of conversations about that in the racism meetings when that was a hot button topic, late 1990s coming into the early 2000s. Elian Gonzalez, his mother died. The Coast Guard found him in the middle of the ocean. I can't remember how old he was, but he wasn't no more than 9 years old at the time. And there was a debate between the Cuban government and the United States government as to whether they should send him back to Cuba to his father, or whether he should stay here with the family that he was trying to escape and come to, which was on his mother's side of the family.
Okay, thank you,
So,
Mal. I think the list is open. I thought this would be a more, a hot topic where people.
oh no, this is hot. This is definitely a hot topic, but I can get deeper into some stuff, but I'll let other people talk.
I'd like to go.
Okay, well, Marion has her, and then Teresa.
Okay, thank you.
Am I muted? No.
No, you're good.
Okay. This makes me remember when I was teaching at Esperanza. It was A.D. Crossman then, and the school was very international, but it was mostly people of Hispanic background. There were some adults who were associate persons, and they were from Cuba. I remember that very well. And Amal made me remember the persons that worked on the staff as associate persons from Cuba were wealthy, and I have no problem talking to persons. I don't care what your background is financially, and they were very open about the fact there was two sisters and some other folks that were Cuban, and they were from wealthy families, very wealthy. One of the ladies told me that they had servants. They had no trouble getting here because they had financial status. Ironically, some of the students actually told me they came on rickety boats. And one child who was about 12 years old told me one of the men had fallen off the boat coming from Cuba to Florida and drowned. But my associates, my coworkers, came on a plane. No problem whatsoever. They got established. They found residences. They lived in one of the projects, and I asked one of the ladies about it, and she said, "Oh, Marion, I didn't mind." Not long after, two of the two sisters were able to find homes in Metairie, very nice homes, I
Well,
might add.
Marion, your 2 minutes
It's
is
my
up.
two
Would you
minutes up.
like to?
Time flies.
It does. Would
Okay,
you like to get back on the list after
I'll listen
Teresa?
to some other remarks.
Okay, Teresa, you're next.
Thank you. Amal also helped me remember something, but you guys remember when Russia first invaded Ukraine and Ukrainians were coming over, and other immigrants were like, wow. It's like they rolled out the red carpet. I wish I was Ukrainian because when they came in, everything other Ukrainians in the United States, whatever bureaucratic wheels that needed to be greased, it was such with ease. And it's like that's the way the process should work when you're seeking asylum. It shouldn't be all these, 3-year-olds in a court by themselves talking to the judge, trying to talk about their asylum case. It was just breathtakingly different, startlingly different. So you think it's advantageous to be Cuban immigrating here. I don't know if you all remember how it was when Ukrainians came over, because it was swiftly with ease, and it was because of the advocacy of Ukrainian Americans, and it didn't hurt. Just like that one racist reporter who I'm sure he wasn't fired for his comments because he literally said, I know I shouldn't say this, but you just can't imagine war breaking out here. These look like your neighbors. These look like your. And I thought, not in my suburban neighborhood here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is a majority city since 2010. And no, that neighborhood that you were showing doesn't look like my neighborhood. But just such racism in his reporting, and reporting is biased anyway. But that he was so aware of what he was about to say and shouldn't say it. But it was almost like, I can't believe these white people did this. We're not African. We're not Arab. I mean, and he kind of gave, not even a hint. That's the thing about the Orange Menace. Brings out oh, I no longer have to hide. I can just openly say it. I don't expect a bunch of Europeans to act like Africans and Arabs. So
Okay.
that was another group of people who could immigrate here, and their asylum case was handled with the professionalism and ease that all of them should be.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
All right. The list is open. Amal?
Yes. Yeah. So what I was going to say was, how does this because we're really basing this off of the Constitution. So if we're basing this off of the Constitution and how the Constitution uh relates to who is and who isn't American, based on how it was written in the 14th Amendment, then where does that leave Native Americans who weren't even mentioned in the Constitution? How do we classify them? Because if the amendment was, I think it was 1868, the 14th Amendment, when it was coined, and it was only to relate to the children of slaves who were recently let go, then how do we classify those who are Native American in the American context? Because we can't look at who they were before the 14th Amendment. We can only look at them as it relates to when the 14th Amendment was enacted and beyond. What does that leave the Native people, the indigenous peoples of the land, in terms of who is and who is not an American? This is why I say there's such hypocrisy in it, because the Native Americans aren't even mentioned in the Constitution, but yet, and at the same time, neither are all of those groups who came from Europe, like the Polish, the Irish, the Italians, the Jews, so on and so forth. But when they got here, once again, this wasn't a debate at that time. And I understand that they weren't classified as white, but they certainly wasn't classified as black either. So where do we classify the indigenous people? Is my question.
Good question. Thank you. And 2 minutes is up. Okay.
Thank you.
The
I'm trying to be
list,
I'm trying to be controversial just to spark some conversation, but I don't want to be too raunchy. Be on my best behavior.
very good. Very good. Okay, but it is a legitimate question. I mean, the Native Americans, unfortunately, have truly never been considered, as part of this country. Um, they have been relegated to, the uninhabitable parcels of land throughout the country and given almost like a separate state within a state, within the, um, with casinos that are not subject to taxation and different things, and, to, I don't know, make up for what has been done to them and how they have truly been left out of everything that is American and not considered. That is an interesting topic, um, maybe for a future date. All right, the list is open. Okay, Marion.
Um, I'm sitting here trying to be very calm. Uh, inside, my insides are sort of quivering. I'm going to be honest, it makes me absolutely furious, outraged. Uh, makes me have not so nice thoughts about certain human beings who think that the melanin in your skin is the be all to end all way to treat your fellow human beings. And this is why I'm glad we have this forum. I hope that other people who don't come to the meetings, I know we're known around this country. It's not, and since Monster Man has been in the White House, the true colors have really come out, and never for a minute did I think that everything was hunky dory because there was certain laws passed. There are people that are going to carry their hatred, their bigotry, their racist attitudes to the grave with them. But it just irks me to my soul to know that someone's going to look at me walking on two legs, two eyes, one nose, a mouth, two eyebrows, but I'm less than because of this melanin in my skin. And it is infuriating, the stupidity and ignorance of our fellow human beings to think that this melanin actually makes me less than. And I'm glad we have this opportunity to talk about things like this. And I hope that somebody does look at YouTube and hear these comments, because it's absolute stupidity that
Okay,
you want
thank
to
you.
take that away from people, their right to be born here in this country, and hold it against them. Well, they can't be a citizen because they don't have they have too much melanin in their skin. Okay, Nancy, I know I overran my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marion. Um, Leonetta. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I think this was part of Project 25, if I'm not mistaken. Nancy, I tried to grab the book to take a look to see, but I got distracted. But I think this was also a part of Project 25 about this birthright. But I think I, it's crazy that certain immigrants are being uh, targeted. And I would like to know from people on this call, what is the difference between the Cubans and the other Hispanics that come from South America? Is it politics? Is that the reason why there's such a difference between the two? Because, like Amal said, the Cubans are welcome here in open arms if they make the trip. But if you come from Mexico, El Salvador, Venezuela, it's a problem. But they're all Hispanic. So is it just the politics? Is that the problem?
Is that it? Okay, thank you. All right, Phyllis is next.
Yeah, I think it's melanin. I think a lot of Afro-Cubans aren't the ones that are getting able to be admitted to the United States. It's the more European looking, white looking.
Ted Cruz's.
Sorry?
It's the Ted Cruz's kind.
Yes.
So
Although
it's the
he's
melanin, it's the
Canadian.
skin tone.
No, I mean in terms of
All
skin
right,
tone.
point of order. Yes, it is. It is. I will agree. I will
And I think
agree.
also in that comes with the lighter skin tone comes the higher economic privilege, which also helps them to be able to get in here. And of course, because, you know, if you have more money, you're seen as being a more productive, contributing citizen than if you don't. That's so yes, politics, economics, racism, it's all tied together.
That's it. Okay. Thank you. The list is open. Wait a minute. What happened to my thing? Oh, here we go. Yes. Surprise, maybe not surprising. I lived in Puerto Rico for 3 years in the mid 80s, and it was very clear that the Puerto Ricans wanted to be, if you looked at their television, what you saw pretty much were white Puerto Ricans that looked, white. They dyed their hair blonde. I mean, they did everything that they could do to look as close to Caucasian as they possibly could. Now, there were a large population of Afro Cubans there in Loíza, on the northern coast of Puerto Rico, outside of San Juan. You never saw that. They were never portrayed on television. There was never any it was like almost like this little secret society of Black Puerto Ricans. Um, but I do think that a lot of, just like you don't see a lot of controversy about illegal, immigration from Europe coming down through the northern border, it all has to do with money and skin tone. Absolutely. I would agree with that. Anyone else want to get on the list?
Yeah, I'll get on.
All right.
Just to
Thank you,
give
Amal.
some just to give some historical context. So like what I said when I said is the people like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, those looking Cubans are the ones that make it into Florida, not the ones who look like me. And I could show you 100 of those. You mostly see them when it's the time for the Olympics. That's when you see the Black Cubans because they're participating in the athletics of Cuba. So you'll see the ones who look like me during those times. But when it comes time for the politics of the United States, and particularly in places like Miami, then that's when you see the Marco Rubios and the Ted Cruz. But Leonetta asked the question what is the difference between why the Cubans are accepted and people from other Latin nations are not? You gotta go all the way back to what was at the time considered the Cuban Missile Crisis. If you remember, uh, at the time when the Cuban Revolution was over with, Fidel Castro took over as the president of Cuba. There were two movies that was crucial in showing you this. I don't know if anybody ever seen The Godfather Part Two, as well as Scarface. If you remember in Scarface, they showed you how the Cubans were immigrating in the very early 1980s, coming into Miami at the time. Well, the United States and Cuba did not have a good relationship because Cuba had an excellent relationship with what was at the time the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union had missiles in Cuba, and John F. Kennedy told them they didn't get the missiles out of there because they were 90 miles off of the coast of the United States, it was going to be a problem. And so that's the Cuban Missile Crisis, the bear pigs, and it's a long story that come along with that. But anyway, it was because of their relationship with at the time the Soviet Union that caused the tension, and plus Fidel Castro coming into power that caused the tension between the United States. So the United States told the Cubans who felt like they were being oppressed under Fidel Castro that, hey, y'all get to the United States, we'll take care of you. And that's how that relationship developed, if you will.
Well, thank you.
It's a longer story, but I didn't want to take up too much time. But that's
That's
the
fine.
origin of it.
There's nobody on the list, but thank you for that history lesson.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the origin of the tension, and the relationship was never amended, if you will. I mean, it was never eradicated. They continue that relationship to this day.
Very good. Okay. Anyone else? Because if not, it is 11:02, and we could technically go to the wrap up if anyone has anything that they would like to say. Teresa, you still with us?
Yeah, I've just been doing housework and caregiving duties. So,
Okay,
yep.
great. Louise, you still with us?
Yes, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to go very, very soon.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do. I think we're pretty much, talked out and discussed the article. Why don't we go to the wrap up, and Louise, you could give your one and only thoughts. How about that?
Yeah, I actually don't have anything to add apart from the whenever I try to whenever I facilitate, I try to use Native American uh, topics because that's something that's very close to my heart, and so uh, yeah, I am. I really don't have much to say. Sorry, it's not a good day for me. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you for attending. All right, and have a good weekend. All right. Um, so we'll move on to the wrap up if that's okay with everybody. And we'll start with you as I see you on my screen, and that is with Marion.
Okay. Uh, I really appreciate that you brought this topic, Nancy, because it is really something we need to keep our eye on. This is no laughing matter. It's an unfortunate situation that here we are. Uh, Astronauts have gone around the moon, and some of us are still stuck in the 15th century with these stupid attitudes about our fellow human beings. But those of us that are sitting here, and I do mean everybody, we need to keep our eye on the ball, use that our right to vote, and speak out if you're not in fear of your personal safety or your life. But and I'll say this, it might sound kind of crazy. I said it's so sad that some of us can't remember. We're all flesh and blood, and one day we're all gonna die. So why in the name of heaven are you wasting your time trying to run other human beings into the ground because they don't look like you? I
Okay.
simply said, I hope.
Thank you, Marion. Next, Leonetta.
First of all, Nancy, thank you for picking up such a wonderful article that's so timely. And I hope that the Supreme Court ruled the right direction. They seem when they had because I listened to what they were saying, they seem to ask the right questions, but who knows how it's going to turn out. Because I see this, if they go the wrong way, this is going to be bad. It's going to be almost like changing the Constitution. And I don't know. I just hope that they rule the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis?
Thanks for bringing the topic. I think it's important to talk about, think about, know about, and to connect all the dots in the way this administration is trying to undermine the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa?
Thank you for this article. If nothing else, it made me take a trip down memory lane. As most of you know, I spent about half or more than half of my teaching career as an international math and science and ESL teacher. And just personally knowing 5 different cultures of people who, some of whom immigrate to the United States, and knowing how hardworking they are compared to, you know, those of us who take our privileges, our rights, or whatever for granted. I think I truly believe, and this is not just like soundbite or anything, but the people who come here, they are so courageous and hardworking. And it's interesting how the attitude is, well, if you can't defend it, then it's not, it's not really yours, like we kind of said to Greenland, or the Danish, I should say. But when you have people who are hardworking and they want to come here for a better life, I for the life of me, I think it's just fear of upping your game or staying up with, being the best person you can be rather than relying on inherited wealth and inherited status. So, but that's another topic. But thank you, Nancy, for bringing up this topic.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Appreciate it. Amal?
Yeah, great article. Like I said, I didn't want to get too controversial with it. I didn't want to ruffle too many feathers. It's a sensitive topic to a lot of people. I Phyllis said something earlier about how the current administration and status of the country is reminiscent of Nazi Germany, and I would have to agree with her in the sense that for me it didn't start with this administration. It started a long time ago, but nevertheless, I see your point. Uh, because I never thought I'd live to see the day when whether or rather not I was an American would be up for debate or not. I just didn't think that day would come for me. And so then the reason I make that comparison with Nazi Germany, because I'm sure there were a lot of Jews at the time who wouldn't have thought that whether they were German or not would be up for debate. And then whether they're German enough, considering what their phenotype was, because Germany had a eugenics program Germans had a eugenics program at the time. So I really didn't think that whether or not I would be considered an American would be up for debate, but looks like now it is, and I think everybody need to be considering what their status is as it relates to whether they're Americans or not, because it seems to be a topic now, and I don't see it going away no time soon. So looks like we on a who's an American bandwagon now. So get ready.
Thank you, Amal. And I find it quite interesting that, like you said, who is an American by people who could not possibly be Native Americans to this country. I mean, really. The only person who can claim, a right to be here are the indigenous people of this country who were here when everybody else came. All right. So to say, well, you don't have a right to be here and you don't have a right to be here, I do take some, really big cojones to do that. But anyway, I do feel that yes, I've said this for a while that this feels like, Nazi Germany or Germany in the 1930s. That what we're living in and trying to circumvent the Constitution and circumvent Congress by doing things that are outside of the powers that are prescribed to the office of the president, going beyond that, doing what, and it has actually said, I can do whatever I want. Well, that's not exactly true, but that is what you're doing. Okay, so I for ever since the 14th Amendment, it has been that if you were born in this country, that you are a citizen. And I don't think that, the wishes of one particular person should have the power to change that. So anyway, thank you all for coming. We can stop recording and you can go to announcements.